Okay. All right. So what's the name of our stupid fucking podcast?
Business Under the Influence.
Business
Do you want
Under
me
the
to start off?
Yeah.
Allegedly business.
Welcome to Business Under the Influence, where we talk about business while under the influence. I am going to be introducing Ben here. So Ben has an MBA, a PMP. He has been an engineer, a business startup owner, a business startup manager, project manager. And he actually once beat Gary Kasparov in dominoes, which is quite exciting.
I think it would be more exciting if I knew who that was.
He's a chess grandmaster.
Oh, hence why I don't know who that is. For a number of reasons.
All right. Hello, everyone. I will be introducing my friend Kristen here. She has years of experience in both corporate and small business. I've learned a lot from her, including the fact that she used to sell pixie sticks at cost in middle school, like a true hero.
Oh man, I gotta try and get through my stuff too. Okay, so I'm introducing the young man on my right, David here, who has a sordid history of leadership across a variety of different industries, including the United States military and some other unnameable big box corporations. He also, in case you didn't know, guest starred on 7 episodes of Days of Our Lives.
I think they were mostly scared I was too successful, so they had to kill me off.
Yes. Yeah, and then maybe bring back an evil twin at some point in the future. What is our topic today?
Oh, great question. Topic today is kind of empowered leadership behaviors that are actually toxic for the workplace. A lot of times leaders are told to be a certain way to inspire confidence in the people below them, the people above them, those kinds of things. And a lot of those behaviors are actually toxic for being a productive workplace, or a workplace where ideas are valued, innovation happens, things occur. And so I'm sure we all have our various horror stories from various places we've been. But I thought we'd kind of go through a couple of those and see where it goes from there. For me, the big one is, oh yes, what are we drinking today? We are drinking some Twilight Pale Ale from Des Chuties.
Deschwetes.
Deschwetes?
Yeah.
Deschutes, for those of you not in the know. I'm drinking the finest vintage 2018 Hogue Cabernet Sauvignon from the Columbia Valley, primarily chosen for the fact that it has a twist top. Yes, carry on. Yes, as you were.
So the big thing is we all have kind of some toxic traits. For me, the big one is kind of overconfidence in their plan. So a lot of times leaders have to always show that they are confident. If people don't think that the leader thinks you're running in the right direction, someone else is going to try and fill that void. Things are going to happen like that. And that's what you're told in business school. Always portray confidence, always be this leader and drive from the front and show people that you're a leader. Military does the same thing. Like, you got to be powerful. Everyone will listen to the guy who stands up straight and says things the loudest. And for me, that's been one that I always expressly try and avoid to do as a leader, because the big thing for me is, at least if you can express vulnerability, that increases trust, and that allows other people to kind of come out of their cage a little bit. And then the reason you're a leader isn't because you're the smartest person there. The reason you're a leader is because you're supposed to lead the smartest people there. And if you're always right and confident, then people can't actually do that.
So I'm going to open with a little bit of a devil's advocate question, but mostly to understand why we teach these things when they are in fact often toxic. There is a limit to that. If you're leading a team of 5 people and nobody believes in the direction you're going, or you clearly don't know which direction to go, can they lose a lot of faith in team cohesion? Because there's also a lot of team cohesion and team dynamics at play as well.
And I think the biggest divider there is confidence versus competence. And leadership, a leader does have to be competent. They do have to have a plan, and they do have to be driving the business in a direction. However, they should not be, if they're the person who knows where the business should be going, knows the best way to do it, and knows how to do it, then why is anyone else on the team?
bandwidth.
And if that's what you are, is you are essentially just a linked computer system to provide them more processing power, then that doesn't inspire a whole lot in there.
Yeah,
but I think
it kind of. Oh,
go ahead. Nope.
go ahead. No, me. I'm going. We're doing.
Me, him.
Yeah. I was gonna say too, I think sometimes that's actually a sign of very weak leaders, people who can't think for themselves, share extra context and information when it needs to be shared, or say, I can't really give you any additional information, probably, especially more for you in like your military experience. There's probably situations where you have to be like, this is the plan and no questions. Good day. But then I've also I've had the like similar experiences with like peers where they don't have that confidence, and so they borrow the black hat, as they say. They borrow the courage from whoever they are, either their bosses or the boss's bosses, to be like, this is the plan and everything's great and we're going to do this plan, and everyone's like, this plan fucking sucks, like what are you talking about? They're like, it'll be great. And then they, like, Ben, to your point, the employees are like, okay, like, is she stupid or are we stupid? Because none of this makes any sense and we're just supposed to go forth and conquer bullshit, essentially. So I think for me, it's like, you get two of the things, either as someone who's just like a hard ass blustering moron, or someone who doesn't have the confidence to stand in themselves and just say, hey, this is the company plan. I know it kind of sucks. Change isn't fun. But this is what we're going to do. And this is how I think we can tackle this as a team. What do you guys think? And go from there, you know?
Yeah, I think there is some confidence that needs to be necessary, as far as I think the danger is you want to express confidence upwards. It's like, if I'm pitching to possible like venture capitalist investors in a small business, I do want to be confident. This is the thing that they have been missing from their lives. But if we secure that funding, I don't want to go and tell my team like, okay, we got the funding, everything's fine. Everything's great. Anyway, let's just keep going here. You want to be like, okay, guys, we have the money. What do you need from me to actually make this thing that we now have money for?
So totally agree. And for me, I just had the distinction of a leader that is willing to present the challenges in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not even have made a mistake yet, but if you're a leader that always pretends everything is fine, that is almost worse, because there are problems. Every team is going to have problems. And if you don't communicate with your team what they are facing, either, financial headwinds, if you want to put a pin in that and discuss that topic later, but now you have a layer of the problem is still there. You are inventing maybe straight up lies to your team just to try to maintain that confident facade, because that's what we get taught. You read tons of case studies like Ernest Shackleton. I'm trying to remember, not Mutiny Bounty, Captain Queeg, but you hear all these stories about like the leader is the leader is the leader. And if you question that, everything falls apart. And that often just makes things way more complicated than it needs to be, than having your team just support you in whatever is in front.
Yeah, I think it's the difference too of like being a leader versus being a boss. And I'm sure, you guys have seen, I'm sure, memes and stuff like that are the differences between the two. But the difference for me too is like a leader should be a buffer for the team, essentially, is like, hey, I'm here for you. We're a team. We can do this together. And then you're kind of protecting them from all the other bullshit, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then dealing with it up as you need to. But yeah, it's you're there for them and you work for your team first,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately. Yes, the company that you work for or your business, if it's you, but you should work for your team, because if you don't, then they're not going to work for you, at least not very effectively, I don't think.
So how do you recognize that in yourself, though? Because you are drawing the line. You want to appear confident and inspire confidence and inspire excitement, really, in your team. You're a Debbie Downer. No one else has motivation. But at the same time, you need to be aware of yourself. What questions can you ask yourself to determine if you are being one of those overconfident leaders?
For me, I think one of the things that I do is you have to actually go to your team and ask them if you're an effective leader or not.
Social anxiety.
And those are those kinds of things. And if I'm ever in a situation where I feel like they're just telling me what I want them to tell me because I'm the boss and therefore they have to tell me what they want to tell me, is sometimes I'll even just come up with intentionally bad ideas. and be like, oh, today, I really think that today we should be working this one thing and everyone should be working this one thing. And then afterwards go and seek like feedback, like, hey, you guys didn't seem really applied after I gave you the rundown for what we do today. Like, what do you think about that? And if they are still just like, oh yeah, no, great. I think that if we have 8 people moving that single box, this is gonna be awesome. We're gonna do so good. Then there's my, my litmus test. But in general, I think the big thing is always asking for feedback from the team. Like, am I giving you everything you need to be successful? Do you feel like you know what's going on for the business? Do you feel like you have the tools you need? And I still want to be, hey, like, we can do this. I believe in my team because my team, they're awesome. I've got a phenomenal team. They're why I am successful as a leader. But so I am confident in that. But I need to be able to know that if I'm like, hey, we're going to do awesome. I just promised our stakeholders we are going to deliver 10,000 widgets. And then the team's like, we can't deliver 10,000 widgets. And then I go, we're going to find a way to make it work. Like that's that blustery thing. When they say we can't deliver 10,000 widgets, I need to say, oh, well, shit. Also, what do you think what's stopping you from being able to deliver 10,000 widgets? Because I looked at our past projections, and in theory, we should be perfectly fine to deliver 10,000 widgets. What's the problem? And instead of just being like, you know what, guys, you guys are awesome. I believe in you. You can get this done. Then I've abdicated my leadership because now someone else is going to have to figure out how we make 10,000 widgets. And that's all because I had to be like, I'm leading from the front. I'm the captain. We're awesome. Go team. And then now I'm just a cheerleader. I'm not actually playing the game. I'm not coaching the football team. I'm just on the sides, just yelling, yay. And it's more for the people in the stands, not the people on the field actually doing the work.
Yeah. I think to that point too, because that's actually an analogy that I use pretty regularly is I'm the coach and then you need your captains or captain, depending on the size of your team. So you have to have those trusted advisors on your team that are going to tell you what the scuttlebutt is, like that other people don't want to tell you, or if there's problems happening, or if there's conflict happening. Ben and David are like in a cold war about who's going to not do this first, that kind of shit. Like you need to have those people that will tell you the honest feedback that maybe not everyone is able to for whatever reason, especially in a group setting. So those are usually the people that I think are the most important in some cases, because they're giving you the real information. Because some people are just going to be scared to tell you, or they're not good with conflict and all that kind of stuff. But if, to your point, if everyone agrees with you all of the time, you are the problem. Like that's not or if everyone disagrees with you all the time, but it's more likely that you'd find yourself in a situation in this context that we're talking about, that if your entire team just says yes to you all the time and gives you nothing back, then they're scared to give you feedback, or they don't trust that you're going to handle the situation appropriately, effectively, professionally, whatever the thing might be. But yeah, you need those people. I also will ask, what questions do you have instead of do you have any questions? That's a pretty I do that in interviews. I do that in coaching conversations, whatever. But what questions do you have assumes that there are some, and you'll almost always get something back, even if they're like, well, I don't really have any, but I was kind of wondering about the company picnic. Like, it seems like a waste of time when we're trying to produce 10,000 widgets. It's like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. So that's something that helps me like get feedback a little bit more casually without making people feel the pressure.
So that's a really big toxic trait. What are we calling that one? Not overconfidence. That's
false confidence.
Being an asshole. Yeah, false confidence.
False confidence, bravado. I don't know. Yeah.
Cheerleading. That's
Yeah. Because if you're not, like you said too, David, like if you're not there with them, like maybe you're not necessarily doing the work, but if you just go, yeah, guys, 10,000 widgets, and they're like, okay, and then you're like, I'll be in my office. Peace out.
Don't worry, it in the shift. I'll high five you on your way out. Like, just show you solidarity and all that.
Yeah, then that's problematic. Yeah, I think false confidence is probably a good. It's also a lack of vulnerability is kind of the word I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Humanity, relatability.
Soulless monster.
That's me.
Yeah, but like,
if
for
you've
me
ever
too,
been confident in your life, you're a soulless monster. That's the lesson you should take from this.
I think also getting really comfortable with the idea that not everyone's going to like your decisions, not everyone's going to like you, and not everyone's going to agree with where you're going, but if they believe in you enough, then you can still accomplish a lot of things. Because like at the beginning of my leadership journey, I was really scared to give people tough feedback. I wasn't comfortable with conflict, and I was worried about people liking me. And as I kind of grew in my skills and abilities, the fact that I am a very decisive and commanding leader is one of the things people love working with me for, because they know that this is the situation, it's clear expectations, consistent accountability all the time, and they know that I will fight to the death for them to try and do as much as I possibly can to make their lives better. But it took me a long time to get there, because you think at the beginning that you want everyone to like you, because you'll get more out of them that way. And people do like me. Some of them don't, I'm sure. They're not here anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Speaking of which, next episode will be how to hide a body.
Yeah, I keep telling you, we can't put that on the air, man.
I mean, I think that leads kind of into my other huge pet peeve for leadership is giving good feedback. All the time you hear, oh, give a compliment sandwich, like a shit sandwich.
Ooh,
like, yep, yeah. I'm going to tell you something really positive, and then I'm going to tell you the actual feedback I'm trying to give you, but then I got to leave it on a high note. So I'm going to give you something else. And all the evidence so far already suggests like, A, they don't hear the negative feedback. If they're actually scared of the negative feedback, they only zero in on the other two. And then they also, if you ever give anyone positive feedback, they're always like, because they know the next part of the next shoe's dropping. And so like and that's one of the ones. And they always like, hey, if you're worried about giving your team feedback, try this method. And I'm like, so now I'm making something up. Like, I'm like, hey, I really like the way you unwrapped your sandwich before you ate it today. Also,
that sounds like an HR case.
You're so bad at your job, I'm gonna have to fire you. And man, your outfits always match, and that's really cool. Like, that doesn't help. And you're usually just trying to give the feedback. You aren't giving someone any action they can take on that feedback, which drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So how do you open that hard conversation? Because I know that's something that a lot of like newer managers struggle with. Anyone who's been a leader or overseen people has their first firing at some point. Which usually comes after feedback. But similarly, you also have some of your first feedback sessions, whether it's official, you have a scheduled one-on-one, you can sit down, that's a little easier. Or you simply, like, something's really wrong, you have to just go to someone and tell them they're not doing their job properly. How do you open either of those conversations?
I think for me, at least the big one is I always start that feedback early and often when I'm running a team. You start it early and often. Like, I'll have a new hire, and the first day after they started, I'll do a one-on-one at the end of that. I'll do a one-on-one at the end of their second day. I'll do a one-on-one at the end of their third day and be like, hey, what have you liked? What have you thought? What is this? Here's my immediate feedback. You seem to be doing this really well. Do you enjoy it? And they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, 100%. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. That's fine. You seem to be doing really well. Like, is it something that you like this? Do you like this? Give me that feedback. Or I'll just be like, hey, I noticed you had a hard time putting on your lab coat today. I'm a little worried this might not be the right fit for you. And
literally,
so,
might be a real story.
And so you have to have those conversations early and often, because when you do sit down with them, you don't want them to associate sitting down with you only with negative feedback. And then B, you want to make sure that they know that you are giving them feedback in the moment that you're getting it, because you want them to be better, because you've provided the smaller levels of feedback often. Like, oh, hey, I noticed when that customer left, you really hated them, so you just flipped them the double bird as they walked out the door. Fun fact, glass is reflective, so like probably keep that on the down low until they've cleared the parking lot, then drop the double birds. And then they're like, oh, cool, thank you for giving me that feedback. And so you can always just kind of give those, like, throughout, you're trying to improve them, and you're doing the low stakes ones often. And then they can run. Then when it is a high stakes conversation of like, hey, we have an HR complaint lodged against you because of this, this, and this. Here's the actions that you will need to take if you don't want this to continue any further. You give them very clear, like, this is why, this is what needs to happen, and these are the end results. And I think running it in that concrete way with them knowing that you provide that regularly helps a lot. And that's my strategy. I don't know what your world lives in.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I mean, we can also go into more detail, I think, on the like official steps on our next episode, which will be more in detail performance management cycle stuff, where I think we'll be able to break down, like, because there's a lot of strategy involved. I think that we're probably on the same vein with that, like how that works, because I would agree it's early and often. And that's what I was saying with the clear expectations, consistent accountability is those little checkpoints when it's like, hey, I noticed that you've been late like 3 times this week. Is something going on? Like, is there something that, do we need to adjust your shift start time if that's possible where you are? Do you need to get up early? What's the thing, And sometimes they just have shit going on and it feels good to be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm super stressed out, my kid's sick, blah, blah. But then, like you said, when you get to the point of having that conversation, one, it's, hey, so this is becoming a real problem. Like, if it continues, then we're going to be moving down the path of termination at some point. But I believe in you. I think that this is something that you can change. And here are some tools and resources. And then, like you said, the action items. So it's, if you've done your due diligence and had those small conversations and made yourself easily accessible and you're having conversations with them regularly, then it's not as big of a deal when you do have to have a conversation that's more accountability related, because it's not the only time they're talking to you. They're not only talking to you when they're in trouble for something, which, like you said, is the same kind of like, oh God, here comes David. Like, I'm in trouble. Oh God, that's a super unhealthy dynamic to have. But yeah, it makes those things a lot easier. And when you do get to the point, like, it's never fun. Like, I've fired plenty of people, unfortunately pretty good at it. There's really only been there, but it's because of all those things, because of my setup for worrying about whether people like me and caring about people, because I'm pretty empathetic. So like that gets in my way sometimes, where I'm like, well, they're trying really hard. So like making sure that I'm putting my ducks in a row so that I can sleep at night. Mostly, in some cases, it's still hard for this situation, but I can sleep at night knowing that I've done everything that I could do as a leader to help this person succeed as much as possible. And then, yeah, it's, hey, unfortunately, we're at a situation now where you have put me in a situation where I have to consider your livelihood, and that sucks. So I like to make people cry. I'm just kidding. But it's like, then it's they're upset because they've let me down, because they're like, I know that you tried your best to make this work and I failed you, and I'm really sorry. Only one person has been like, I will burn this building down.
That was my first termination. Was a stand up, flip the table. Like, I was like, oh no, are they all like this? Yeah, that one though, like, everyone was they're like, oh my God, there's a box going out the door with it. Yes, we're so excited, because she was just terrible. But anyway, I digress. Carry on. Yeah, I mean, and for me, that's the big thing, is if someone knows that you believe in them, value them, and want them to succeed, you don't have to compliment them when you give them feedback, if it's negative.
Right.
And because you're also giving them positive feedback throughout. So I want the shit sandwich to die in a fire in such a way that no one can ever recover that body and try and sell it at a management conference.
What I'm hearing is never give positive feedback. And then you can't go wrong.
Exactly right.
That is key takeaway. Yeah.
What are some of the other, I think one of the other things that I really hate in leadership is not sharing the vision or the goals of the company, and not sharing how we're going to get there. For me, that's one where, like, the team people are awesome. I mean, everyone says people suck, but at the end of the day, we've managed to go from like, we're throwing sticks at stuff to like, we're destroying our own planet on our own because we decided to. And so like, that is absolutely amazing. People in large groups can accomplish the most amazing things. The problem that you run into is that if everyone's pulling in a different direction, you've got that like rat king situation with all the rats with their tails tied together, just pulling, and they can't be successful.
I feel like this one's a little subtle. and kind of ties back into leaders must be confident, the first one we talked about. Because a lot of the reason that leaders don't share is they want to seem like there's stuff behind the curtain. The more information I give my employee, the more they have to worry about. It's my job to shield them. And they're coming at it with that mentality of, I'll worry about the roadmap. You worry about the tasks that I give you.
Yeah. You worry about today.
I think what ends up happening a lot is, this one is weird because I think you see it at middle management. Kristen, I don't know what your experience has been, but upper management to middle management, where you have someone that needs to be a leader and is not informed on where their ship needs to be headed.
Yeah. Are you gonna?
You can go ahead, because I was just gonna also just pile onto that point. But just the main thing is, like, people, like, you can do a task productively in the wrong direction. And so you can be like, so let's say I'm like, okay, these boxes will need to ship to Wisconsin tomorrow. These widgets, these 10,000 widgets we've made, they will need to ship to Wisconsin tomorrow. A person can say, okay, good, then we're finished with that. We need to get it out of the working area. And they can then put it into a storage facility on the property and be like, cool, problem solved, done, done, done. And then the next day they come in and they're like, dude, the truck's here. Where the fuck are the widgets? And then everyone's like, oh, fuck, where are the widgets? And that person already went home because they were the night shift. And so no one knows where the fucking widgets are. Now there's panic. But if someone says, hey guys, we have to deliver those widgets to Wisconsin tomorrow, the truck will be here at 8 a.m. and it will be loading in this dock over here. And then the team can be like, what's the best way to make sure we're set up for success to load that in there? And so those kinds of things where just sharing the vision, someone got it out of the workway. It's not in the way. People are continuing to make widgets because we didn't have 10,000 boxes piled up, but they put it in a way that didn't further the goals of the business beyond that day. And so I think that being able to share that with your team and because the danger in that is people can be like, this is the dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard in my life. But that's how you get better ideas.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's for me. Yeah. That's one of the other ones. Like, just share where you're going.
Yeah. Because there are people, especially with like logistics kind of stuff too. Like when you're talking about coordination and logistics and when things need to happen and why they need to happen, when they need to happen, you always need the people that are gonna be like, but wait a minute, don't forget that they're doing road construction. So the truck isn't going to be able to come in the main warehouse entrance. So the truck's going to have to load up on the other side of the building, which means that we're going to need to stage the widgets over here. And then you're like, oh shit, yep, nice work, David. Way to be a nerd. But
I do follow ODOT on Twitter, so
you fucking would. Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the things too, because you're talking about like communication too, when in larger corporations, but sometimes when the leadership level is too much of a gap between the positions. So like if you have like your delivery or operations team and then you have their leader and the person above them is in too high of a ranking position, if that makes sense, like
yeah.
I feel like then there's a huge disconnect because the delivery team, like the leadership of the delivery people is like, hey, this is a problem. And the person's up here, but they're talking to VPs or directors or whatever. And they don't understand. There's like, sometimes there's too much of a gap. But if you have like, if you're a small business owner, you own a restaurant, and then you have like 2 or 3 leaders who help you in certain ways, that should be a really short gap. Like you shouldn't have huge communication misses because you should still be involved with your team. And I think that happened. Well, I won't name names. That happens sometimes in corporate.
So we are not putting our prior employers on blast.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. What if we did in pig Latin?
I think some people will probably draw some conclusions, but yeah. So like they're completely disconnected from that.
Yeah.
So when they're completely disconnected and disengaged from the process, then there's huge problems. And like there's always that like they don't listen and they're like, why can't they just do the thing? And it's like, because you're not fucking paying attention to any of the actual stuff. They're just moving numbers around a board and they're not engaged with the actual people. So for most small business owners, even if there's a few owners in the business, they're usually going to still be somewhat involved. So as long as you have that relationship and connection with your people, it should help with some of that. It's the opposite of compression.
Elongation.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Today's vocabulary lesson.
Today's lesson is brought to you by the letter E.
Yes. Okay.
How many levels of leadership is of this person away from this person? 1, 2.
It's too many.
Jesus, I need another beer.
Yeah. We're so we're kind of done with that because I have another strength, not
another
strength.
toxic leadership trait. Phenomenal.
Yes, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, another one that drives me absolutely bonkers is that we should all just act like adults. And when leaders say that employees need to work out their problems amongst themselves, because that's some weak ass shit. And I can't stand it because that's not their fucking job. And like so many people just don't have those skills because of their backgrounds, experiences, trauma. Like you can't just be like, hey, this person who makes you extremely uncomfortable at work, you need to talk to them and tell them that it's a problem. Because they already came to you, which was probably terrifying enough to be like, David's a real douche. Like he makes inappropriate jokes all the time and he's a piece of shit and does a bad job at his work. But like, I can't say anything because our work touches each other. So like, I don't want to cause problems. Yeah, I fucking hate that because it's like first of all, the most important life lesson I've ever learned is that no one is an adult. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. We're all just out here. Yeah.
Can I plug something really quick? Kindergarten.
In the middle of my rant.
Yeah, everyone should finish kindergarten. Go back if you haven't done that. Try it again. It's really important.
Kindergarten?
Yeah.
Nap times and grape juice.
And sharing.
And no sharing. My shit. So yeah, but it's like there's no like that's what leaders are for. Like if we didn't need leaders, there wouldn't fucking be leaders. But there are leaders because we need a leader. Like when there is a group of people, someone has to make a decision or you will die never doing anything. Like it'll just be analysis paralysis or everyone arguing about how their idea is the best way, and then your little rat situation happens. But yeah, that shit just sends me because I'm like, you're just a weak ass, like you're not. Sometimes it should happen, but a lot of the times you need to facilitate it in some way, either coach them through how to have the conversation or help them provide the feedback, or you do a little extra recon, figure out if it's a bigger problem, because maybe other people have issues with the same person and no one's telling you, which is also a problem. But yeah, I hate that shit. Like everyone just needs to act like adults and they need to give each other feedback. I'm like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
One of my big things is you should be able to treat everyone like an adult. So not babysit them.
Right.
Like for me, like one of the big speeches I give every one of my new employees is like, you're an adult, which means real life happens, which means you're going to get a flat tire. Your alarm's not going to go off. Bad weather's going to hit. Your kid's going to have a blowout and your wife has to get to an interview. All those things happen. Just keep me in the loop. And then like that's how real life works. But
yeah,
I am responsible for all of my folks' well-being while they are at work. That's my job. And they manage themselves outside of work and they get to work. And then they are counting on me to make sure that they can be successful, not fucking skeeved out by some weird dude, and like can actually succeed and get the goals that they want from the company, because it's transactional. I pay you money, you give me effort, I invest time into you, and you make this whole thing work.
I think that's a really good way to put it, though, is that you are avoiding your job as a leader if you don't listen to or address these problems. If you're the kind of leader that says, I don't care how you do it, you just need to be at work on time, that's a barrier to your employee doing their job. Your employee doing their job is what makes the company money. Your job as the leader is to organize, provide the tools necessary, and make sure the deliverables are happening. If a team member's tool broke, say they're on a production line and their tool broke, they cannot do their job, and you say, figure it out. No, that's not what you do. You're going to get fired. Their car is a tool for them to get to work. And if they have a flat tire, help them fix it. Legal and ethical things aside, like if your employee calls you at 2 a.m. because they're in a sketchy situation, maybe talk to HR first or decide for yourself. But
yeah, there's some boundary problems. But go on.
But if you aren't listening to your employees, they're asking you for help on how to do their job better. And you as the leader need to help them do that, because that's ultimately what helps the organization.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's helping them help themselves too, because like that happens sometimes. Like in my one of my previous jobs, I sometimes wasn't available because I would be in a meeting or on a conference call or something. So somebody would send me an IM or something like that, or send me an email and be like, "Hey, I don't know how to blah blah blah." But by the time I got back to them, they had figured it out for themselves. And I think that can be the flip side of that. Sometimes is you have to be careful about how much people rely on you to solve their problems for them, because I am very decisive and I have an opinion about fucking everything, even shit that doesn't matter. But I will make a decision. If you ask me a question, I will make a decision. So I have to be very, very intentional, and sometimes I lose track of it, about how many problems I'm solving for people and making sure that I'm helping them solve problems, as opposed to just doing it for, because it's exhausting. Like if you get too far on the other, you're like, oh, hold on. Like nobody can do anything by themselves anymore. Like what, whoops, what happened?
If your workplace burns down when you take vacation, then you're a handholder, you aren't a leader.
Yeah, which is problematic. Yeah, the other thing that popped in my head when we were talking about this is the whole "we're a family."
That's a one-way relationship. That is the if anyone says we're a family, I am out.
I do feel
it is a red flag.
Yeah.
A lot of these traits are things that we have noticed becoming leaders in, honestly, a younger or newer generation of leadership. We're on the dawn of a new age, if you will, to be a little melodramatic. But leadership practices are changing. And I like the dramatic face. Yes. Ages.
Yes.
But a lot of these perspectives come from the crap that has happened to us, right? Everyone's had their first job. Everyone's had their manager at Taco Bell go, "We're a family and I'm here for you." And then they're not. That's a lie. You learn that everything in the world is a lie.
And they just want you to work 40 hours of overtime. But then you're like, "Oh, so sorry I was late. My car exploded." And they're like, "Well, you're fired." And you're like, "But I gave you 40 extra hours." I mean, it's basically a boundary problem too, because it's like it shouldn't be a family. Like you said, it's a transactional relationship. Yes, you can create a culture in which employees feel valued and appreciated, and they feel like they have team members to rely on, and sometimes they become friends outside of work, whatever. But like ultimately, you have to be able to fire someone regardless of how much you like them, because those are the fucking worst ones. And you cannot have that because it confuses people, and they're like, "But I thought that you were going to take care of me. I thought that you would answer my phone at 2 a.m. when I'm calling you from jail because I got pulled over drunk driving," or whatever the situation is. Like, if you aren't careful about the boundaries, like, I am the leader, you are the team member, I will fight to the death for you, but also those are the boundaries. And that's something that I tell my team half jokingly, but like to pretty much kind of say these are the boundaries, because I'm a relatively likable guy according to some people. And so like the times that people are like, "Hey, we're all going out to the bar after work, you should definitely come too," so the thing I jokingly tell them is always just like, "I don't think about you as soon as I'm out of this building. Like here, I will freaking murder a bear to make sure you can do your job. But as soon as I leave this building, I'm like, Bobby, who? What? I don't know who that is." And it's like, I do take it home. Of course, you always take your work home.
Right.
But like, just to give them kind of, this is the situation we're in right now. Like,
yeah,
I will do everything in my power to help you, but you just have to understand that's in this world. I control things in this realm. I don't control whether or not you do meth in your free time. I don't do that. So you can't be mad at me when I didn't tell you, like, "Hey guys, PSA, don't do meth." Because like, why would I have done that in the workplace? Unless you're doing meth at work, in which case you're gone for a different reason entirely. So
it makes it a lot tougher, because I've definitely crossed that boundary before, like especially in retail, where it's very easy to do that because it's a very strong camaraderie. Like it's almost like trauma bonding because customers are fucking awful, and you have this like it's us against them mentality almost. And so like you get to know some of these people, especially when you're a leader in retail. You're working 50 to 60 hours a week, so you're there all the fucking time. So it can be very confusing sometimes, and like I've done that before, particularly in that environment where I like would start hanging out with people. And so the thing is now, well, it's a little bit different now that I run my own business, but in other situations since then, it's like if everyone's not there, then I can't be there, because then that causes issues down the, the favoritism, and Kristen only hangs out with the cool kids or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Oh, so and so didn't get in trouble because Kristen's friends with him outside of work. So I try to be very, very careful about that now, because it got a little messy at some point in time in my past. So
I was about to say, especially in insulated communities. So you talked about retail, where sometimes you work weird shifts, and you're working holidays, which means you don't get holidays off, things like that. The other ones are like the restaurant service, like bartending. Those very insulated communities with a very small population working weird hours and days. And their blackout dates are different from everybody else's as far as when do we take vacation and things like that. And so it's very, in those situations, it's very difficult to run into, like, it's very easy to walk into the situation you walked into, where it's like, oh yeah, sorry, Bobby, he manages this restaurant, and Bobby always hangs out with the cute waitresses. Therefore, we should probably just figure out we're never going to get ahead because, he doesn't want to stick it to us. Like that's,
which is also totally unfair to your employees, because if they did actually earn it and it wasn't because you were trying to sleep with them, then it sucks for them, because their job is 1,000 times harder, because everyone thinks it's because they have some sort of leg up because you want to sleep with them, or you hang out with them outside of work, or your best friends, or whatever the thing is. Like
deceptions in management could be a whole episode on its own. But this does remind me of a story that I just had, and a great segue into my toxic leadership trait. Might be a little brutalist, but so I recently had a situation just like that. Someone who was part of a very small team, had been with the company for 2 years, 3 years, since the inception. I step into this leadership role, meet everyone, take over from a previous leader. It's my job to overhaul a bunch of things and kind of understand what's going on. Like, what do you do here?
What exactly would you say you do here?
The company is wonderful. And everyone is super nice. The team gets along really well. And so I pretty much give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Like, that nothing is wrong, if you know what I mean.
Smooth water, smooth
on the
sailing.
Surface.
On the surface. But then we find out that small complaints at first, this didn't get done, that didn't get done, dig into it a little further. Basically, we let the situation with this one employee go on far too long, until we realize that there is, upwards of $30,000 that is unclaimed in revenue, because they simply weren't charging. It was ridiculous.
I've already heard this story, so I know. So that face.
I'm okay.
Super fun. And so this individual, not only that, through the nature of legal agreements, we had to charge this money. Like, it was fraud if we did not. Now we have a history of it was over like the course of 2 years. So now you have this history, this issue that we suddenly have to deal with, and this employee who has been incredibly kind and loving. This is the employee that on everyone's birthday sends out a group message and a group email like, hey, it's this person's birthday. I just want to like appreciate them for all the work they do. And I just had to call him on a Friday morning. Hey, you don't work here anymore. Out of the blue. And this individual had no idea. I mean, on some level, they had to know something was coming, but that's how the conversation went. They were like, just like that. And I didn't really have any words for them. But my point is that my toxic trait that I would like to posit is that everyone has potential, is something that leaders are told. It's your job as a leader to build your team and build up everyone. And it's your failure as a leader if this person isn't successful at their job. I agree with that to some extent. And I firmly believe that you as a leader have to try. You have to do your due diligence with all employees. I disagree that everyone is right for every job, is the really nice way to say that. And the faster you can recognize that as a leader, the faster you can remove roadblocks for the rest of your team, whether that's moving the individual, firing them, giving them a different job, whatever it might be. I wish we would stop as leaders saying everyone has potential. You just need to try harder. Give them 6 more months on performance improvement.
Yeah.
Also, just stop moving people around instead of firing them.
Yes.
Because that's
that's
the
actual
other
one.
piece of that.
The shuffle.
Yes, because
that's
happens.
just shuffling your responsibility onto someone who's not a coward.
Yeah. And I will say, because that happens to me, sometimes there are people who will work for me that won't work for anyone else, because I will tell them what the fuck is up, especially the ones that are like problem children, so to speak, or maybe they have a bit of an attitude problem, chip on their shoulder. They're either going to work really well for me because I'm going to call them on their bullshit, or I'm going to fire them. Because I refuse to me, it's when you're running a team or running a business that has a team, whatever, you cannot sacrifice the greater good for the needs of one person. Like if this person, because I've had to do that shit too, Ben, where it was the person who everyone loved, she was super sweet and thoughtful and brought gifts and trinkets and snacks and things and like all that kind of stuff, and that was fucking rough. But it was costing the team so much because so many people were having to compensate, and I let it happen for too long because I was like, well, we'll just try this maybe we'll try having so-and-so trainer, maybe we'll do this, or we'll recreate the entire process so this person can maybe do it. And she just wasn't a good fit for it. But some of those other ones, and but it's like the honest conversation where I'm like, hey, this is the situation. We can work really well together here. I don't know that that's going to happen if I leave or if I move teams or something like that. I don't know who you're going to get, and you're either going to have a problem with them because you think they're an idiot, which is usually the problem. So they have no respect for the leader that they're working for. So they're a problem because they don't have any respect for the leader. So they're just constantly fucking pushing the line and towing the line and like trying to just like, why, that's fucking stupid. Like, what are you going to do? Fire me? So
yes.
and it's like the answer should be yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. If you don't do what I fucking tell you to, I will fire you. Like that's the end of the day.
I love black sheeps. Black sheep are phenomenal. They're creative problem solvers. They're people that buck trends. They don't ask like, well, this is the way we've always done it. They're the guys that are like, the way we've always done it is fucking stupid. And then you're like, but like there's the line between the way we've always done it is fucking stupid, and you say, okay, then what should we do? And they're like, that's the person that's going. And the person that says like, all right, I have this 3-step process that we do instead. And you're just like, yes. And so too much we spend time coddling the guys that are just like, I hate everything we do. And you're like, then give me something better. I would love for you to give me something better.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I just want to just bring this down. This is crabs in a bucket. I'm going to complain, and I'm going to bring everyone else down around me as soon as they start to climb out of my hell pit of depression, and I will pull them into my anger. And
I'm so excited for the performance management cycle conversation.
Speaking of an odyssey,
I have some really good stories. The other one for me that I think gets taught a lot, and this was hammered into me as a new manager when I was finally in leadership. In the military, it's a little easier because your people are assigned to you and you're usually in the same spot they are. When I got into corporate leadership, they said like, you need boots on the ground. You need to be out there. You need to be amongst your people. You need to be walking around, because you can't solve problems if you aren't aware of them. So be out on the floor, be out talking to people, which is very great advice. Excellent advice for leadership. What that turns into, though, is they don't tell you how to have meaningful interactions with your team. So my biggest thing is it turns into you are managing. It's managing by walking around, which turns into you're managing people's times, not managing people's outputs. And that is my other huge pet. Like if someone can do the job and they look like they're lazy, but they're blowing everybody else out of the water, I should not be having a conversation with that person about their performance and how they're doing, because they're knocking out of the park. But when I walked around, they were leaned on a box chatting with somebody else who is also knocking it out of the park. Okay, like they've earned that. They knock it out of the park. And so like that, and so it becomes this managing time. Oh, what are you doing right now? And they're like, I'm just taking a quick break. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, you're only at 180% expectations for your output. So I need you to stop talking and get back to it. And like that is going to just kill anyone. Everyone will always only work as hard as it takes to not raise attention as you're doing a walkabout. but no one is ever going to try and succeed, because if you see them slack off a little bit, I noticed you weren't at your desk. And it sounded like we were having a tour coming through. And so I noticed that when you weren't at your desk, but the board of directors walked by and you weren't there. Why was that? Well, I was wandering off to do something else. Like I went to the bank
in the
deposit a
bathroom.
check. Like I was pooping. Like it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Like what like I shouldn't have to defend the fact that I did everything you needed me to do today. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I didn't happen to be at my desk. Cool, I did my job. And so I think, and a lot of, I think old school managers are taught like it's boots on grounds, you got to be there, you're in the trenches with your people. But what that turns into is you're only in the trenches so you can stare at the people and make sure they aren't doing anything wrong. And that's the like don't manage my time, manage my output, you can manage perception. That's fine. I can go over and be like, hey, listen, you guys are both at 180 output beyond what we would expect from you. You guys are doing great, but just know that person's new and they're looking at you and they think they can do this. They take these breaks and now they are struggling. Like, so if you guys like, can you guys either take them under your wing, teach them your tricks? Can you just make sure you aren't doing that near that person? Like, because your perception, but I'm not going to be like, go like work. Sorry, you're almost 2 people worth of output. I need you to just fucking speed it up there. And like, that's not how you make a engaged, active employee.
Ooh. Well, we had the other side of that is retail sales, in which you also have to manage the customer's perceptions, because it's like we had that. We would have assigned sales leaders who were like walking the floor, make sure everything was doing okay, like nothing crazy was, or like, oh hey, like they're slammed back here, can we get some extra people back to help out in this department for a little bit? Customer service is backed up, can somebody from the front lines help? Whatever, like that kind of shit, right? So you're like making things move, checking in with the teams on where you're at for the numbers, like. But that was always a challenge, because I'd be like walking the floor and it's like, dude, what are you guys doing? There's like 2 customers over in routers and like you're just standing here fucking off at the unnamed merchandise table. Anonymous brand. But yeah, that was always tough too, because it would be the same kind of thing. And especially when the customer flow is inconsistent, as it always is, you know, you'll get like a rush and then everyone leaves for some reason. And then you got one customer in the store, and as soon as they have a fucking question, no one's available, or the 2 employees in the department are like standing at the register talking to each other. Like that was always a struggle too, because it was basically, like you said, managing the perception, just being like, bro, can one of you at least go in the break room or something, like, so this doesn't look, can you like pretend to laser line, like.
And it's always one too where it's like you have to seek to understand first whenever those happens, because like one of my very first jobs at an unnamed retail store was you have 7 seconds to engage any employee as soon as they enter your department.
Customer?
Oh, sorry, customer. Yes, you can engage any customer. I'm not
walking around. Management by walking around. 7 seconds, David.
So you have 7 seconds. As soon as a customer enters your department, you're supposed to have 7 seconds to get there. And my boss, in their infinite wisdom, was that was the hill they were going to die on, I guess, was the decision. And so there was at one point in time, and this was I can point at the 2 moments that actually killed that business for me. And they were managing my time, not managing my output. And we had just helped a customer with a very complicated return sell process where like we had to do, like, we were doing like fucking calculus to be like, okay, wait, so that was at a sale price at this time, but then this one was at a sale price at this time. So we have to mark down this one to run that one through there. But then you're taking this one at full price, but you're using these bucks, which give you 50% off on only items that are not on sale. And so we were doing like fucking like long division. And at the very end of it, I'm a pretty new employee. And I was like, hey, can you explain like how did you walk through that process in the system? And so we're both in the area and we're both and she's like, okay, so I went through this. The first thing is you get the money back into the store. Then you have to run it as get the money out of the store, and like just run them as 2 completely separate transactions. Do it this way, this way. This is how I check sale prices at the time it occurred, blah, blah, blah. Like you can actually set your computer to the day it happened and then scan the item. It'll tell you your sale price, and then you just reset it back to where we're at. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is all really cool information to have. And then there was a customer that just walked in and was just kind of browsing shirts, and they were holding up a few different sizes. And then our boss walked in and was just like, why isn't any of you helping that person? They've been here for over 7 seconds. And we're just like, we're trying to be better at our job right now. Like, I apologize that we didn't engage with a person who's clearly not even sure what they're buying, because they went from tank tops to t-shirts to jeans. They aren't sure what they're here for.
Merchandise
like,
table
they
one,
have
merchandise table two.
Yeah, they
merchandise
literally
table
have no
three.
idea. And so one of those things where it's just like, okay, cool. Like, this is, yep, nope, I'm coming here, I'm putting in my hours, and then I'm going home. Because this person came in and didn't even ask a question, and then was just, because they were just managing our time, not managing what our output was.
And like you said, I think Ben was making assumptions, or like not asking questions, or maybe that was David, just making an assumption that it's negative intent or that something malicious is happening. And so just being like, hey, what's going on? Like, is everything okay? Maybe they're helping the customer. Maybe they're looking something up for him. Like,
approaching with automatic anger because you've made an assumption isn't really a toxic trait. Like, that's just bad management.
I mean, that's just bad person. That's
a
bad person.
Yeah, that's just a shitty person. Yeah.
Our topic of the day is things that are considered to be standard management but are toxic.
Yeah.
Some things are just toxic. Like, don't scream at your employees.
What?
David just learned this today.
Hold on, I need to write this down real quick.
But no, micro extremely toxic trait is to assume what your employees are working on and what they are doing, and approaching the situation that you believe is happening before your employee even explains anything. I've had this happen several times as the employee, not the manager.
Because you're better than that.
Because I like to think I'm better than that. But a manager has pulled me aside, into a like full-on anger mode, caught me in the hallway, pulled me into an empty conference room, and was like, look, we got to talk about this. Why the fuck are you doing this? What is going on? And I'm just out of nowhere, because I have been doing my job effectively. He was missing like 4 or 5 key pieces of information. Like, you were given a billing account to do this specifically by another manager that you are dotted line reporting to. Like he was just missing so much of the information. And then I explained it to him. And luckily he was a very good manager, admitted his mistake and kind of apologized. But that's a big one. If you suspect something is going wrong, how to ask your employee what's actually happening, or looking at the deliverable with them before approaching them about a perceived issue.
Yep. And that's one that was actually hammered into me as a young manager at an unnamed place, was they framed it in the most, this is a positive thing. And I was like, this is the most negative thing I've ever heard someone say. Was they're like, when you're doing your walkabouts, your feet on the floor, you're doing this, they're like, if you're seeing someone not working in that moment, you only have so much contact time with someone. So if they aren't working, then when else are they not working throughout the day? And I was like, you literally just said you see each person like 7 to 13 seconds a day. And you just said in 7 to 13 seconds, you saw them not working. And so your lesson to me as a manager is that means they are working the rest of the day. Don't look up there, don't check, don't talk to them, don't do this, don't do this. And so our lesson from that environment was go immediately to your office. So stop your walkabout and engagement with all the other employees and pull up their performance report for how well they're doing their job. And if they're doing not as well as you would expect them to, call them immediately into the office, because you saw them for 7 to 13 seconds not doing the job. And I was like, oh my, no, what? Like, and that was, they're like, this
literally
is great management. We are successful. Why do we have a 45% turnover rate? I don't know. I don't understand why, when I just accuse every person I see who happens to not be actively handling the product of not working. I don't understand why they don't want to be there. It's
that company
weird.
is throwing pizza parties.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they are.
Oh God, fucking pizza parties, man.
Fucking pizza parties.
Golf. That's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
In the same way sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
In the same way we talked about fake confidence, fake rewards are exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Your team sees right through that bullshit.
Yep.
Don't do it. If you want to thank an employee, thank them. If you want to thank them in a substantial way, understand how to do so and what is substantial to them. And that goes into a lot of other leadership topics, like understand motivation. But don't throw a fucking pizza party. I will find you and I will toss your pizza on the ground and scold you like a puppy.
Because I do know how much that, I know how much that pizza costs. I can Google that. So I know exactly, I know exactly how much. So we had one where we did a pizza party because we had at a previous company, we had a pizza party where we smashed some goals and some records. and then they hosted a pizza party, and one of the employees, and then our leader was like, hey guys, this is because you guys have put out such great work. I'm really proud of everything everyone's done. Thanks. I really appreciate it. And someone shouted out, why are you spending $2 per person when stocks just went up by $5 per share? And that was a really uncomfortable silence after that. And then the leader at the time was just like, you do have the option to buy stocks in our company.
Oh no.
It was just like instant, like even anyone who had been engaged with the pizza party was like, oh, that's a great point. That is a lovely point. That's a lovely point. Oh, are you compensated in stocks, wise leader? Is that part of your compensation package?
That's what they call a mutiny. That's how a mutiny starts. Is like, hey, yeah, fucking blah, blah, blah. And then everyone else is like, yeah, okay, fuck this place. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and you know what we could have done? We could have just given everyone a $5 like Amazon card or like Visa gift card. Spend it on whatever you want. That's already just as valuable. That's more valuable than the pizza party was. But we had to do it so we could take photos with, leaders handing people pieces of pizza. Be like, oh, look
in
at
their servant leadership.
We're a family here. So see how we're handing, the leaders are serving pizza. Therefore, we are servant leaders.
If a manager ever tried to hand me pizza that way, I would make it the most awkward experience for them. Like my hand on top of pizza, hand underneath.
Underneath their
drag off.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just like,
ooh, take a bite from their hand.
No, like put your hand under the pizza slice on top of their hand, and then like take it that like scoop it off their hand.
Just
okay,
the top of the pizza and say, now no one gets it, and walk away.
Yeah.
Oh, this has dairy in it. Just walk away. Yeah, that's one of the ones. Also, evidently, I did leave a note for myself. Don't scream at employees.
Oh, yeah. Important.
Very important. Some of them like it though, so you gotta pick and choose. So you gotta know your people. If you do it in a room,
yes, Daddy, probably maybe put that on pause real quick.
Boundaries. Okay, what recaps? What takeaways do we have? Did you guys?
One last simple.
Oh, good job.
So our first one was leaders must be confident is something that is always taught. And we want to address that as false confidence. Be careful of just lying to your people because they will see through that. Giving positive nuggets when giving bad feedback, or as David says, the shit sandwich, that's often really just giving ineffective feedback. Be careful you're actually getting the message across. We had, let's see, everything is need to know basis. Managers keeping things from behind a curtain, not projecting a roadmap, usually taught to, either protect intellectual property or whatever the reason. There's this perception of need to know basis. Ultimately, that just creates a rat king of everyone below you making assumptions and going in a different direction. Let's see, we had not doing your job and supporting your employees, assuming everyone is an adult or telling them they're an adult, deal with your shit. Ultimately, they're not doing their job when you do that. And it's your job as a manager to help them do their job better, whatever that looks like. And then finally, everyone has potential. No, they don't.
No.
Absolutely not. They don't. Fire the people you need to fire. And there is a last one that's really simple, but personality type tests on day one. You're a new employee. You get given Strengths Finder and a book. It's the worst. Don't do that. Stop it. No one cares. You're not learning anything as a manager. If you want to learn what kind of personality your employee has, actually engage with them. Try that.
I have a rant on personality tests that is longer than what we have left.
That should be, I feel like we could do almost a whole topic on that because that's like personality tests, but then also being able to identify your employees' like strengths and weaknesses as an individual. Because I do like assessment.
Absolutely.
But in specific situations, I spilled my wine. That's what's happening. I knew this. That's why I bought a plastic cup. Because
well, I also like how you're like, I bought a plastic shirt, or a plastic cup, but then I wore a white shirt for when I drank wine.
Yeah, I actually missed my shirt. I got it on my pants. Anyway.
Oh, thank God.
It's not my first rodeo. I'm also wearing white Chuck Taylors, so that's fine.
Oh, there you go.
Future episode though. How to positively learn
future
about
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personality test. I love my favorite thing about personality test, having done the psychology and stuff, is the large majority of them were invented by people who have no idea what the hell they're doing. For example, Myers-Briggs. Do you know who Myers and Briggs are? Is it
Myers-
Dr.
Oh, we're doing it. Are you doing
is
this
it
one?
Dr. Myers and Dr. Briggs? Renowned personality.
I had just assumed
psychologist?
so.
Yeah, everyone does because they just said last names. No, it's a mom and her daughter-in-law who wanted to find ways to figure out why people in like their fucking book club did shit.
Ooh, yeah, this could be a whole.
I like their-
Myers and Briggs
like their
have
style.
no knowledge of how personalities actually work, but then everyone puts in their fucking dating profiles, their work profiles, their everything.
Yeah.
Everyone does the INJ fuck, like who gives a shit? Like, there is more. There are more personality tests that are just made up by people, and most of them are like corporate blowhards. Just I pointed Ben like he's a corporate blowhard.
That's me. Can confirm.
But most of them were made by just corporate blowhards who just wanted a way to rack and stack and prove why they didn't like the employees they didn't like. So they made a personality like, oh, you land in these quadrants. Successful leaders tend to be in this quadrant. Oh, did you not make it in that quadrant? Oh, that's probably why you're struggling so hard. I should probably fire you because you're a quadrant 2 person.
No, they shuffle them. They don't fire them.
Yeah.
They shuffle them.
them. Tell someone shuffle until they stop complaining. Oh my god. Oh, personality tests are just. Whoa.
I wish would be great is if I could just like mute you like in the middle of your rant. You're like, so we're done listening to David now.
You are the host of this meeting.
Yeah. Yes. I actually can. Yeah, I could mute you. I could stop the record. I just total dictatorship. That's my best style of leadership. Okay, cool. So next round, we're talking about performance management cycles, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. Okay.
Everything is terrible.
Fucking nailed it.